To those who have accidentally killed someone, what went wrong? Story 1. My dad is a garbage truck driver in a major city. A few years ago, there was a dead and crushed homeless man found at the dump. They went through the camera footage and the tickets for the trucks coming and going and narrowed it down to my dad's truck who dumped the man. The guy was sleeping in a dumpster. For those of you that don't know, there's a packer blade in the back of those trucks to squish the garbage to make more room. He didn't stand a chance. Story 2. Rock climbing in Nevada. I was securing the line, paused to sneeze. My friend prematurely switched lines without me giving him the thumbs up. He fell over 100 feet. I haven't climbed since. I was 18. I'm 51 now. Story 3. I asked my college roommate to drive my car since I was tired. Not sure what happened as I was asleep, but he ended up hitting an oncoming vehicle head-on at around 60 to 70 miles per hour. I was the only survivor. His parents were extremely helpful in forcing me to accept that it wasn't my fault. But my heart breaks regularly for his lost potential. He was an incredible guy and would have done great things, I'm sure of it. Story 4. A crazy wasted guy broke into my house several years ago. He had a knife and was threatening me. My young son and I were the only ones home. I heard noise in my house and grabbed a baseball bat I keep under my bed and went to investigate, thinking it was probably nothing. The guy came at me yelling incoherently, and almost as a reflex I cracked on top his head with the bat. I think my adrenaline must have put more into the strike than I thought I was doing, and the guy dropped immediately. I called 911 and police arrived quickly, but he was already gone. Crushed skull. I still have nightmares fairly often, but can't picture how else it would have ended without me and possibly my son being attacked. Survival instincts are strong. Story 5. No, but I thought I did for almost 2 years. Very close friend of mine, the kind of guy that always seemed to be happy and everybody just loved him, was hanging out at his place. We were 16 back then, and for whatever reason I don't remember, I showed him how to tie the hangman's knot. 3 days later he was dead. His mom called, claiming he hung himself and it was all my fault. Fuck asterisk 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 me up badly. My friend was gone, I never saw anything coming, and apparently it was even my fault. Almost 2 years later we found out by coincidence that he offed himself with exhaust fumes in his mom's car. I'll never know why he did it, which still haunts me sometimes, or why his mom blamed me with wrong accusations. Never could be angry about that though, given how painful that must have been for her, or how she knew about that stupid knot. Story 6. This was a hockey accident when I was 19. I'm 36 now. I shot a low slap shot and there was a net battle, and my friend on the other team got shoved, fell over, and the puck hit him in his temple and shattered much of the structure. He died later because of the bone fragments in his brain. I stopped playing for a long time after that. Now I play men's league and wear his number. Story 7. This happened to my uncle back in the 1970s. He was coming home from work one night in a snowstorm, and turned onto his road. His house was on the other side of a hill. He climbed the hill, and as he started descending the other side, he heard kids screaming and yelling. Brakes were useless. He ran over a 10-year-old kid who was sledding down the hill in the middle of the road and killed him. It was his next-door neighbor. There was no charge against him, nobody sued him, because it was clear that it was a freak accident. Even the kid's parents told him it was not his fault. However, my uncle, 53 years old, World War II USMC combat veteran of the Pacific War, previously strong-willed, clear-headed, and not a drinker, drank himself to death in less than a year. Tragic all the way around. Story 8. It wasn't me. It was my dad a few years before I was born. He was a truck driver, and one late night while he was doing his normal drive between Sydney and Brisbane, a car coming in the opposite direction failed to make a turn. The driver was close to his destination, and had likely decided to continue driving despite being tired. My dad had nearly 80-ton worth of truck going 100 kilometers per hour. He couldn't do anything. The car went under the front of his truck. The driver and his passenger were offed immediately. The passenger's 3 children in the back were pinned, but alive. And awake. And screaming. Being the early 90s, my dad had to run for the nearest house to get help. When he reached a farmhouse, he got them to call emergency. He couldn't bring himself to return to the scene of the accident, the screaming was already haunting him. From that point on, my dad couldn't handle the sound of children crying. It broke my family. The actions of one idiot who didn't take a fuck asterisk 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 nap. My dad still had to drive that route several times a week. I remember watching him grip the steering wheel so tight every time he approached that corner. Don't drive tired. Story 9. An acquaintance of mine was once attacked at his home. He was selling a car and a potential buyer slit his throat from behind. Guy got lucky and they only severed his windpipe, not his arteries, and he was able to turn and run to his house. Attacker chased him with the knife. As he tried to get the door open, the attacker caught up to him. He turned and a fight ensued. He eventually took the attacker's knife and stabbed him with it. Attacker died of blood loss soon afterwards, but the acquaintance got stitched up at the hospital and survived. Most of this was witnessed by a neighbor who called 911 and reported the events in real time on the recorded line. Police charged him with second-degree murder because he stabbed an unarmed man to death. Prosecutors dropped the case, but he spent almost a year behind bars waiting for trial. Story 10. There was a guy robbing people at knife point in a downtown area with a lot of bars in it. People would bar/club hop there all the time. People had started moving around in groups. Another regular at this bar I was at all the time decided that because he is one of those dudes who literally was a black belt in 3 serious martial arts and was an instructor for same that he could walk between bars without the safety in numbers thing. So he goes and comes back about 20 minutes later and he's covered in blood and shaking. Goes in the bathroom, washes his hands, comes back out and is like, I need whiskey. He sips it for a bit and then tells us that the guy who is robbing people tried to rob him. He told him to go foo*** himself. Guy came at him with the knife. Instinct, training, I could even stop it. I watched in slow motion as I grabbed his wrist and pivoted his body so he went into his own knife. It him up, but the dude ran away trailing blood. Cops showed up and took his statement. They pulled security camera footage from rear of the bar. About a week later he came in and told us the cops caught the guy when he checked into a hospital, where he died. Dude was never quite the same after that. Spent a lifetime training to do exactly what he did for exactly the right reasons, self-defense. Still broke him. Story 11. I accidentally killed my husband's grandfather. My husband and I had been married for about 2 weeks when his beloved, elderly grandfather was hospitalized after a stroke. My husband was devastated. We went to the hospital together to see him, and my husband's entire extended family was there. Like 25 people. I was brand new to the family and had not met many of them, and had only met his grandfather once. It was kind of awkward being there as the only non-blood family member during such an emotional time. I decided to just stay quiet and out of the way. The family all gathered around the grandfather's hospital bed. He was definitely alive, but was hooked up to a bunch of stuff and had been unconscious since the stroke. It was unclear if he'd ever wake up. The family decided that they'd go around the circle and each person would say something to the grandfather. Things like, I remember what a great dad you were, or, thank you for teaching me what it means to be a good man. Really deep, heartfelt things, to which the old man had zero response at all. I was standing in the circle next to my husband and assumed they'd skip over me, but it became clear that they expected me to say something, which was terrible because I didn't really have any knowledge of or history with the family beyond my husband. My mind was racing, trying to figure out something to say that was appropriate. Then I remembered Rocky. The one time I'd met the man, like 3 weeks earlier, I'd spent the whole 20 minutes we were there talking to the grandfather about his new Jack Russell Terrier, Rocky. He was so excited about Rocky, and really seemed to take a shine to me because I, wanting to make a good impression, was more than willing to ooh and ah and ask questions and listen to stories about Rocky. Aha! I thought, standing there by his hospital bed surrounded by his entire sobbing family, I'll mention Rocky. That will be both personal and safe. What could go wrong? So, Daddy Earl, I said, this is so-and-so. I met you recently and was so lucky to get to play with Rocky. And I just want you to know, we are taking great care of him and he is very happy and we are going to make sure he has a great life, so don't you worry, okay? And bam. Daddy Earl fucking sat straight up in his bed, opened his eyes, grabbed his chest, went grrgbble really loud and then fell down dead just like something that was extremely not alive anymore. That's right, I offed Daddy Earl. The machine next to him went BEE, and all 25 of my brand new in-laws looked at me in absolute horror. Especially the ones who hadn't gotten to say anything yet. Talk about uncomfortable. It was obvious to me, and to my husband, thank God, that I hadn't offed his grandfather, but released him. Clearly, he was hanging around waiting for someone to confirm that Rocky was okay so he could go on and shuffle off this mortal coil and get on with things. And I was the only one who was both kind enough and rude enough to do that for him. I'm telling you, holidays after that were mighty awkward, and some of them never forgave me. That's okay, though. When things got tense I'd just excuse myself, and me and Rocky would go for a walk. Subscribe.